Hi FSU students, my name is Jessica Lowe Minor and I am the Executive Director for the League of Women Voters of Florida. We are an organization that engages in voter education efforts and also trying to encourage people to get out there and vote. So that's what we're hoping you will do, either early vote between now and this upcoming Sunday, or you can vote on Election Day, Tuesday, November 2nd at your precinct location. Alright, so in addition to the candidates that you're going to be voting for this November 2nd, you'll also be asked to vote on 6 constitutional amendments to the Florida State Constitution. And these are actually very important, so it'll be a good idea for you to do a little bit of research in advance to going to your polling place so that you can decide how you're going to vote on these. I'll just briefly explain what they are, but you should definitely take a little time to do some research beforehand. So the first amendment, Amendment 1, is the repeal of public campaign financing requirements. So essentially what this would do is right now in gubernatorial races, i.e. the governor's race in Florida, candidates who opt in to accepting public financing can receive money for the state for their election if they agree to a cap on how much they'll spend. So basically this is supposed to bring down the cost of elections because as we've seen this election cycle, there's been millions and millions of dollars going into campaigns. And so this is supposed to bring the cost down by making candidates agree to a spending cap if they choose to receive public financing. Other people say that this is welfare for politicians because we're using taxpayer money to support candidates and campaigns. So it'll be up to you to decide whether or not that requirement should stay in the Constitution or if it should be repealed. The second amendment, Amendment 2, is the Homestead Ad Valorem tax credit for deployed military personnel. And essentially what this would do is give deployed military personnel, i.e. military men and women who are serving overseas, an additional property tax exemption or an additional homestead exemption for their homestead that they might own in Florida. So this is something to think about if you strongly believe that military men and women should receive a homestead exemption while they're deployed overseas. Then we have Amendment 3 has actually been taken off the ballot by the Supreme Court, but Amendment 4 is something that's called hometown democracy. And the official title is Referenda Required for Adoption and Amendment of Local Government Comprehensive Land Use Plans. So that's a mouthful, I know, but basically what it means is that every time the comprehensive land use plan of a county or a city was going to be changed, the voters, if this were passed, the voters would have an opportunity to vote on that change. So this would either, if you vote no, you'd be leaving the system as it is, which would mean that your local county commission or local city commission would be making decisions about the comprehensive land use plan. Or if you vote yes, then that means that the entire electorate, all of the voters in that area, would have an opportunity to vote on whatever the change is that was going to be made to the plan. So that's Amendment number 4. Then we have Amendments 5 and 6, and they're actually essentially the same amendment, so you can kind of vote on them as a group. But Amendment number 5 is standards for the legislature to follow in legislative redistricting, and then Amendment number 6 is standards for the legislature to follow in congressional redistricting. And these amendments are a little bit complicated, but don't be scared. What they do is you will actually, every 10 years, of course, we have the U.S. Census, and that shows us where the population has moved. So some states will grow, some states will shrink, and what has to be done in order to accommodate these changes is something called reapportionment. And so you might have learned about this in your civics class or your government class when you were in high school. But essentially the districts have to be redrawn or reapportioned so that there's still the same number of people approximately in each district. So say a city that was really huge in the last 10 years has shrunken somewhat and the outlying suburban areas have gotten more population. They'll actually change the district lines to make sure that the same number of people are in each district rather than having a district that used to represent 100,000 people, which now only 70,000 people live in. And then another district that used to represent 70,000 people, now there's 100,000 people, they have to change that too. And so this will, the districts are redrawn every 10 years to make up for these population shifts. Well, what the legislature has been known to do in the past is redraw the lines according to which legislative political party is in power at the time. And so what sometimes happens is that legislators will redraw the lines to maintain their seat. And the league thinks that that might be somewhat problematic because we have situations where the districts are drawn to favor or disfavor a specific political party or an incumbent. And sometimes that's an example of the legislators choosing the voters rather than the voters choosing the legislature. So this is something to think about, whether or not you believe that gerrymandering should be allowed to continue as it is, or if we should try to change the process and establish some constitutional standards that would limit the way that legislators are currently drawing the district. So those are Amendments 5 and 6. Amendment 5 will relate to the legislative districts, so the state house and the state representatives, and also the state senate and the state senators. And then number 6 will relate to the congressional districts, so your U.S. House of Representatives, your federal representative who represents you in Congress. And then finally, Amendment 7 was removed from the ballot, so our last amendment is Amendment 8. And I know you're getting tired, but please stay with me. Amendment 8 is the revision of the class size requirements from public schools. And what that would do is, probably some of you remember in 2002 when they passed the class size amendment that set caps at how large you could have your public class sizes. So your K through 12 classes were limited at a certain amount. And what this would do is revisit that 2002 constitutional amendment and would alter it slightly so that the classes could be slightly larger than they had originally been established in 2002, and so that they could also be calculated based on a school-wide average. So for example, if you have a special education class that has very few kids, then you might be able to have another class in the school that has slightly larger class to accommodate for an average over the entire class or over the entire school, as opposed to having strict per classroom numbers. So that's something to think about. You can vote yes if you want to change the current class size calculations, or you can vote no if you want to enforce the original calculations that were established in 2002. All right, so I'm sorry that was so long, but I'm sure that you're going to be making your decisions very carefully, and you're going to get very educated before you're ready to go vote next week. Good luck, and if you have any questions or you want to look at a handout of these pros and cons of all the constitutional amendments, the League of Women Voters of Florida has a website that you can visit. It's www.voteanywhere.org, so voteanywhere.org. And you can actually download a PDF copy of the document that I was reading from today, so that you can go through and see what all of the different constitutional amendments are, the background, and also the pros and cons on each one. All right, thanks so much, and go out and vote.